Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of album openers, looking at the first or maybe the first couple of tracks on an album. Although this week it doesn't seem like we're going to have any of the ones that cover a couple, where maybe there's like a 1-minute intro into a first proper song on track 2. I think everything this week is just the first track. Today we're going to be checking out the band Lantlôs, which we've had on the channel before. We're looking at the Melting Sun album. First track is called Melting Sun Movement 1, Azure Chimes. Let's dive in, see what they're bringing to the table today. Now, for some reason, I thought they were black metal adjacent. And this certainly doesn't sound black metal, but even on the harmonic side, if they had played all this at 16th notes, I don't think that would be black metal either, so. A lot of fuzz, a lot of texture on this. Kind of gazy, but with a really slow, heavy weight to it. Oh, that bass line is nice. That vocal slide, along with the rising bass line and just the general warmth and positivity in the track, it's very inviting. This section almost has like an alt rock or grunge kind of vibe to it, especially with the hazier vocal idea. Interestingly, it also has 3-beat phrase here. Well, I was counting it in 4, which made the 12 odd, but we counted in 3, we get 4 bars of that. I think that's how it's supposed to be felt. So much of this song, though, is in 4, so I just kept feeling that 4 there, even though 3 was probably more accurate. It's really rigid here in a way that it's been more floaty in previous segments. The bass is larger here, right? There is a warmth to this, but usually I would pair that with the feeling of inviting. But I think the term I want to use for this is warm and accepting. Saw with only a couple seconds left to go, it was either going to be a very harsh immediate end or a fade out. And given that there's multiple movements to this, I think the entire album is called Melting Sun. It wouldn't have surprised me if this had faded into the next track. Yeah, all 6 tracks are a movement of Melting Sun. Now, at the beginning, I had mentioned that I thought this was black metal adjacent. I think I remembered the general haziness of this track with more of a metal, though. Maybe I've listened to a different album of theirs that is a bit more metallic. At the beginning, I almost felt that it was kind of doomy, but we got away from that really quickly. And rather than possibly a doom gaze that it could have went into, I think ultimately what I would classify this under some sort of shoegaze alternative rock. It definitely captures a lot of the effects-driven guitar work that we hear on shoegaze, very atmospheric, not so much in the realm of riffs, but in playing the guitar and having the end result not be what you're playing so much as the atmosphere that all of the interlocking and layered textures are going to result in. And so a lot of this track ends up feeling very hazy, very foggy. The guitar, the fuzziness of it really drives a lot of that. And there's also sort of a covering up of the attack as well. If you've ever listened to somebody play an acoustic guitar, maybe a clean electric guitar, and they pick it, there's a more of a sharper accented start to the note rather than the more sustained neutral vibration that goes on as the string continues to vibrate after being plucked or picked or whatever. However you're instigating the vibration on the string, there is a sharpness to the beginning of it usually. That sharpness is covered up, removed by all of the effects on the guitars, which allows the guitars to create this sustained ambience without any sort of stops or breaks or variance to the texture. That's one of the cornerstones to shoegaze, but even something like black metal uses it as well often. So I'd say that's the general approach to this track, is crafting these atmospheres. And what I get out of most of this, with both the combination of the textures of the instruments as well as the notes and chords being played, is generally something positive. There is a weight to it all, especially at the beginning, as we had a bit more of a slower focus on tempo. Yeah, I don't think the tempo itself changed as much, but we played less notes in the first minute of the track than we did for a majority of the rest of the track. So it had a slower time feel, even if it technically wasn't any slower than the rest of it. But it did have a weight that kind of implied some sort of negativity, something weighing down on maybe a narrator or a character. Maybe it's supposed to make us feel weighed down, something heavy on our shoulders. But the harmonic side was always positive. We had these run-ups on the bass, an ascending line. The guitars are higher pitched. We don't really have a lot of bassy guitar work on here. And a lot of the harmonic work, the chords, the chord progressions feel accepting. There is a positivity, a warmth to it that feels like I belong here. And I really like that combination. I don't know what they're supposed to represent. I don't know what their intentions are with this combination of sounds, this heavy weight and the uplifting harmonies. That's generally what I get out of this track, based off of, you know, these core elements here, the chord progression and the texture. And that really does make up a lot of this track. Now, something else that stands out to me on this is the vocals. They are drenched and reverb. They have a little bit of compression on them themselves. They at times sort of remind me of the lighter sung parts of Deftones. There's also more of an alternative rock thing going on in, I think it was the second verse too. And maybe a little bit of grunge too, which does have a little bit more of that apathetic vocal delivery with effects on top of it. All of this, though, tells me something very different. If the music is inviting, asks you to be in it and makes you feel good while you're in the atmosphere, the vocals feel like someone who is distanced from that, still stuck inside of all of these textures and emotions. But as I mentioned, I use the word apathetic because it's just this light, airy vocal style. It's not projected. It doesn't have full volume to it. It's just kind of airy. But there's also a distance to it as well. The vocalist doesn't, well, especially in the bridge and the choruses, doesn't use a lot of staccato tones in there. Doesn't use a lot of short notes. A lot of it is these long, drawn-out sounds. And maybe there's a little bit of movement within it, but it's legato style. There's not a sharp, distinct shift between two pitches. One just becomes another. And it's almost as if they're not even really paying attention too much, or maybe their time has slowed down. It's just not a high priority of theirs to get through these sentences really quickly. And when I pair that with more of the apathetic emotional delivery of it, you kind of get this slow, distanced sounds in general, which sounds like they're not really paying attention too much to the uplifting, beautiful parts of this track. Maybe they are in the middle, where the heaviness of the intro pulls them down, the escalating ideas in the harmonies and melodies pull them up, and it kind of puts them in the middle, stretched between two worlds. I don't know, but I do find it to be an interesting choice here, given what most of the music is doing. You'd think the vocals would be a bit more cheery, possibly. On a less emotional side of things, maybe a bit more technical, I really appreciate the bass work on here. They are almost always moving. There's no part in here where the bass just plays pedal tone or plays exactly what the guitars are playing or anything like that. They create a bit of movement, directionality, and physicality that isn't really present anywhere else. The bass might have some effects on it, but as far as my ear can tell, it's lightly picked, but we still have that sharp, it's not really sharp here, it's more of a rounded off tone, but a clear distinction between a sustained note and a picked note, even if it is, I think, probably finger picked in this case. You can tell when notes start, when they end, and when the finger hits the string right before vibrating it again, which causes a very brief, albeit audible, stop, the end of a tone. We have rising ideas. We have a couple of descending ideas, but they are quite rare. We have some sections that are a bit more moving, directional in a forward way rather than a rising way. The bass does a lot of the heavy lifting in rooting this track and ensuring that it goes somewhere. So much of this song, the vocals, the textures, the guitars, it just creates the atmosphere. We sit here, we reside in it. It's not really interested too much in going somewhere. Here is fine. We've crafted this. Why would we want to go anywhere? The bass presents pretty much all of the momentum in here alongside the drum kit. The drums do lock into pretty metronomic styles throughout here, focusing more on keeping the time, keeping the tempo and the pace for all the instruments, but there's also just as many drum fills in here, which drag us into the next phrase, take us into the next moment, help us pull into the next section of the track. Also, alongside the bass, the drums have the most physicality to them, the least amount of effects. It creates a nice, varied sound overall that isn't too hazy or ethereal, but never too rooted either. And I think this lines up well with the illusion of the vocals kind of being pulled between two worlds. Yeah, very cool track, very vibe-based, very texture, atmospheric kind of thing. But I think it still does a great job at somehow still being kind of catchy in moments and of pulling the listener through to the end. It didn't feel like a 7-minute song at all to me, despite the fact that I'd say emotionally it's pretty stagnant. Once you get at the beginning, it's same as what you're going to get through the middle and end too. But it has its nuances and its variable elements that help it feel interesting from moment to moment. Let's dive into some lyrics on this one and see what's going on. Well, there's only 5 lines to this, not a lot to dissect. It says, I take the azure ladder into sun-colored haze, into the vault of no time and space, sweet ether, numb my senses. The other line is just numb me, which is repeated 3 times to create our choruses. I don't know what the azure ladder is or what the sun-colored haze is, but I understand a vault of no time and space where one can numb their senses. This is a place outside of existence. This could be a plane of, I mean, maybe a literal plane, but I'm thinking more along the lines of meditation, to find a mental state where your mind is at total rest. Now, I think it's really interesting, though, that it says numb me, because all of this seems kind of maybe not positive, but wanted. They want to do this. They want to climb the ladder, to go into this vault. They call it a sweet ether. And it isn't just the phrase numb me, it's numb my senses. This is a command. It isn't a description of what happens. It says, while I'm here in this sweet ether, numb my senses. I think that's where a lot of the ethereal, lighter elements lean into the lyrics. It is this feeling of emptiness, of blank slates. Not necessarily of finding joy through elation, but finding joy from escape. And that's where the numbing comes in. Something about everything outside of this moment is a weight upon our narrator. This is probably what the opening minute is supposed to represent. And they're running from it into this vault, not to find joy, not for, dopamine to be activated, not for love or positivity, but for neutrality, to get away from negativity, to get away from the weight, and for all of their senses to be numbed out. They don't want to feel anything, see anything, smell anything. They just want to exist with nothing. Yeah, I think the song does a great job of that, and that sort of neutrality of escaping a low, not chasing a high, but chasing a neutrality. That's what I was talking about. The song feels like someone in the middle pulled between two extremes, and yeah, that's pretty cool. I still don't understand the more metaphorical components of this, the azure ladder and the sun-colored haze, but I think I get the gist of it, and it works really well with this track. However, these are just my thoughts on Melting Sun Movement 1, Azure Chimes. What are yours? Did you enjoy this? Is there anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Please put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to add, into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.